In the book of Isaiah, chapter number 9, I want to call your attention there at verse 1 and verse 2 on today, and then I want to pick up a few other verses here on this morning. Isaiah chapter number 9. I want to begin reading there at verse number 1 and verse 2. And then we'll jump down at verse number 6 here on today from the New King James Version of God's holy and divine word. Listen at what it says. It says, "Nevertheless, the gloom will not be upon her who is distressed, as when at first he lightly esteemed the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterward more heavily oppressed her by the way of the sea beyond the Jordan in Galilee of the Gentiles. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelled in the land of the shadow of death, upon them a light has shined." And here's why. Look at verse number 6. "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and the peace there will be no end." I want to, brothers and sisters, just for a moment here on today, I want to talk from this topic. He keeps on looking out for me. He keeps on looking out for me. You may be seated here, very presence of the Lord. He keeps on looking out for me. He keeps on looking out for me. Will you help me in getting this message into the atmosphere today by repeating this topic after me? Let me hear you shout out, "He keeps on looking out for me." Again, let me hear you shout out, "He keeps on looking out for me." Third time for the Holy Trinity, and with uplifted voices, let me hear you shout out, "He keeps on looking out for me." Now, if you know that the Lord is looking out for you and then he didn't stop looking out for you, won't you put those blessed hands together and just give him some praise? It was on the 7th album that was recorded by Kirk Franklin that he recorded a song entitled "Looking Out for Me," which featured the late Willie Neal Johnson. And the lyrics of this song exclaimed that every time I look back and every time I think back on all the stuff I've been through, I've prayed through, that I've cried through, and then I tried you. And just when I was about to fall, your love, it caught me when your name I called. Jesus, you keep on looking out for me. I shouldn't be here today. And when I look back on all of my mistakes, if it hadn't been for your grace, I don't know where I'd be and where I'd go. Who can love me like you do? And who can hold me when I'm going through? Jesus, you keep on looking out for me. And I don't know this morning, that perhaps may be somebody's testimony in here on today. That when you look back over your life, peeking through the rearview mirror of your life and examine all that you've gone through and all that you've cried through and all that you've prayed through, you realize that if it had not been for the grace of God in your life, I wish y'all could talk back to me this morning. You realize that it was not your money. You realize that it was not how good you look. You realize that it's not how fine you may think that you are. You realize that it's not the job that you have. You realize that It wasn't your family, nor was it your friends, but you realize and you are aware, cognizant of the fact that if it had not been for the creator of the cosmos making kind contributions on your behalf, that you would not be here right now. And you have to take and you have to conclude without even telling everything, because everybody cannot handle everything that you have gone through. And if they knew everything that you've gone through, their opinion of you might change. But thanks be unto God, God knows it all. And in him knowing it all, you can just summarily say that if it had not been for the Lord on my side, I don't know where I would be. And you can declare today that the Lord, he keeps on looking out for me. And I don't want to get into anybody's business on this morning, but here we are on the first Sunday of Advent, and that word Advent derives from this Latin word adventus, which means the coming. It means the coming. It is the great anticipation of the coming of Christ. And as we celebrate Advent and get prepared for the coming of Christ, he's already came one time and he is on his way back again. But as we celebrate Advent, you have to pause and realize that the Lord, he keeps on looking out for me. Is that anybody's testimony in this house today? I mean, he looks out for you. He looked out for you when he watched over your family. He looked out for you when you went to work. He looked out for you, amen, in your relationship. He looked out for you when you made that mistake. He looked out for you when you went the wrong way. He looked out for you when maybe you said the wrong thing. He looked out for you when your past kept catching up with your future. He looked out for you when your haters and your enemies didn't want to see you succeed. He kept on looking out for you when you thought you knew the best thing to do, but your best thing was the wrong thing. And the Lord, he kept looking out for you. Even if you got children and your children have made mistakes and gone astray, the Lord, he kept on looking out for you. When you've done some of the wrong things that you've done, talk back to me up in here. You may look perfect this morning, but you ain't perfect. And I may look perfect, but I'll tell you that I'm not perfect. And I can testify, if you won't open your mouth, let me open my mouth and tell you that the Lord, he keeps on looking out for me.